Hi, I'm Karen and I'm a Presbyterian minister. And today I'm going to talk to you about tires being the support system for a car. Now, I don't know much about cars, but I do know about support systems being a minister. So, society tries to tell us how important it is to be independent and self-sufficient, which is very important. But sometimes people think that means that you have to do everything by yourself. And when you have a problem, whether it is medical or emotional or psychological, if you ask for help, there's something wrong with you. Society tells you it's not okay to get help. And I think that's not only wrong, I think it goes against the way we were created. If you need help, a strong and smart person gets the help that knows, like I don't know cars, they know that they're not an expert on what they need help on, and they go to the doctor or they go where they need to get help. Now, think of yourself as a tire. If you are one tire on a car and there are no other tires, that car's not going to go anywhere. In fact, it won't even be supported. It'll probably tip over with just one tire. So you need 3 more tires. Now, the first tire I'm going to talk about comes from a scripture in Genesis in the creation story. Genesis 2:18 says, "It is not good for the man to be alone," which doesn't sound like it has much to do with support systems, other than the word that, if the actual translation is Adam, and Adam is Hebrew for human. So the scripture actually says, God said it is not good for the human to be alone. And most people assume this is talking about getting married and husband and wife, and that could be your person, but what this means is you need to have someone who has your back. You need to have someone that you trust enough to let them see the real you, flaws and all. And that could be a husband or a wife, but that could also be your best friend, a co-worker, a sibling. But you need to have someone who is your person, the person you can go to, that you can relax and let down your hair and tell them anything. So your second tire is find yourself a person, the person who is your backup, who will always stand with you. Now, our third tire is you need a support community, a support system. In Galatians, Paul is talking to the early church, and the early church became the extended family of Christians, because most times since Christians were persecuted, if you became a Christian, either your family went with you or your family kicked you out. And many of the Christians had no support system because their family kicked them out or were murdered by the government and were in hiding. So the church became your family and your support system. So you need to find your support system. And I know the church gets a bad rap today, but there are still small churches that do this. But in trying to be bigger and have numbers, many of them don't. So I find my support system my support system is the choir. The choir becomes our family, and if somebody in the choir gets sick, the choir rallies around and they prepare food for that person and their family. If someone dies, they support the survivors of that family. They become the extended family. In fact, it was the choir when my second child was born that I called a choir member at 3 a.m. and they came to watch our older son so I could go to the hospital and have a baby. You need to find this kind of support system. It could be a prayer group, it could be a Bible study group, it can be, even if you find that in your coworkers, but you need to find a support group that will bear your burdens with you, that will bear one another's burdens. And Paul says when you bear one another's burdens, you are fulfilling the law of Christ, which Jesus said that as his last commandment and his last law, love one another as I have loved you. You need to find this loving community. Now, our fourth tire should actually be the most important. Our fourth tire is God, because humans can fail you. Even your best buddy who is your person is human, is going to make mistakes and can fail you. That support group can fail you. You can fail yourself. But God will never fail you. Matthew 28:20, Jesus' last words to the disciples said, "And remember, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Many times, especially when you're having a hard time, you can feel like God doesn't care, or God isn't there, God has abandoned you. In fact, Jesus from the cross cried out to God, "Why have you forsaken me?" But God hasn't left. There's a story that many people put up in pictures that's called the footprint story. And in the footprint story, a man looks back on the sand on the beach where there are two sets of footprints. And those footprints represent his life. The man looks at him and said, "God, why, when I had the hardest time, why was there only one set of footprints? Why did you abandon me?" And God said, "My child, when there's one set of footprints, that is when I carried you." So you need to have a prayer life and a reliance on God, because it helps you know that when it all seems dark, you're not in control. The world doesn't seem in control, but God is. And you can always trust on God to have your back, even when the world doesn't. So you need to come up with a support system like a car has its tires to move forward. So you need yourself, you need your companion, your helper, you need a supporting group, and you need to have God on your side. And with those four, you can make it through life, no matter how hard life gets.